Hello and welcome. My name is Amities, they, he, she, and today we are looking at and talking briefly about The Heart of Thomas by Moto Hagio and translated by Rachel Thorn. A review I've been trying to get to for at least a year but kept having to return the book to the library before I felt like I had finished. Originally serialized between May and December of 1974, this English translation was made by Fantagraphics in 2012. Hagio apparently also created a one-shot prequel and a one-shot sequel in 1980 and 1976 respectively. They were entitled The Visitor and By the Lake. Heart of Thomas was also adapted to film in 1988, a play in 1996, and a novel, although that went on to become more of an original work, apparently. Content notes for suicide, rejection, implied rape, physical abuse, and children smoking. Looking at the creator, Moto Hagio, as I said in my review of the Poe Clan, Volume 1, born on May 12, 1949, she is apparently still alive, living in Saitama Prefecture. Heralded as a founding mother of modern shojo manga, especially shonenai, she is also a member of the Year 24 group, and described as the most beloved shoujo manga artist of all time. I also talked about her collection A Drunken Dream in 2021, which is still probably my favorite thing by her, although she always proves extremely interesting. Keywords that came to mind reading this book: line, pattern, school, love, and friendship. Flipping over to the back, The Heart of Thomas is described as, quote, the setting: a boys' boarding school in Germany sometime in the mid-20th century. One winter day, 14-year-old Thomas Werner falls from a lonely pedestrian overpass to his death, immediately after mailing a single brief letter to another boy at the school. To Juli, one last time, this is my love. This is the sound of my heart. Surely you must understand. Thus begins Moto Hagio's The Heart of Thomas, one of the most compelling and enigmatic manga graphic novels ever created, and a pioneer in the popular boys' romance shonenai genre. Thomas's death, was it an accident, suicide, or even murder, immediately throws the school into turmoil, while his letter sets off a chain of emotional upheaval, both for the recipient and an ever-expanding circle of friends, family, and teachers, as secrets are revealed and shared, and then a new boy who looks exactly like Thomas shows up at school. Unabashedly romantic and emotionally complex, The Heart of Thomas features an unusually richly imagined setting and a cast of memorable characters. This timeless masterpiece is now finally available to American readers, end quote. Plus, according to the Goodreads description, quote, The Heart of Thomas was nearly canceled early in its serialization in 1974 until Hagio's first trade paperback, The Poe Clan, Volume 1, sold out in a single day, giving her new series a new lease on life. The result was a story more complex, less accessible, and yet so compelling it can be found near or at the top of any list of classic shoujo manga, translated by manga scholar Rachel Thorn and packaged with the same loving attention to detail as Hagio's Eisner Award-nominated A Drunken Dream. The Heart of Thomas is already the most eagerly anticipated manga translation of the new decade, end quote, which combines to be a fairly accurate assessment in my opinion. This book is extremely moody, melodramatic, and beautiful. There's so much detail in creative page layouts. Not the kind of gay story I generally consume, but my interest in almost anything was definitely piqued, and I feel like I have a better understanding of shonenai now than when I started. I should probably try and figure out other key titles in the development of the genre. Looking at the representation of the story, class, ability, and race-wise is pretty one note. Sexuality is a bit more diverse. Discussion of gender in The Heart of Thomas does in fact take up 4 meaty paragraphs on the Wikipedia page for this book, and it was pretty interesting. Hard to summarize, but even as an outsider, I do find the discourse around why people with vaginas like stories about gay guys to be pretty interesting, as long as it stays respectful. To conclude, while I wasn't rushing out to pick this book up for fun, it does include a pretty awe-inspiring amount of effort and detail, and was really interesting. 4 stars. Bye, y'all. Keep reading an organized and capitalist depression. And as always, Literally Graphic is created on land that should be given back to the traditional landholders, which in this case is, to my knowledge, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, non-Anishinaabe people, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Huron-Wendat Nation.